Good morning, and thank you for joining Hiding Behind the Lipstick 3.0 Ministry. I am Ophelia Waters, your host, and today we will be talking about manipulation. Manipulation by a cruel abuser. When the manipulation seems real, when the manipulation is really convincing, when the manipulation leads to domestic violence or sexual assault, emotional abuse, or mental abuse. What makes it real and what is really just game? Game that makes you feel that maybe this time it will or it can work out. When the manipulation leads you into grave danger, or when the manipulation kills. You've been hiding behind the lipstick of manipulation. You've been convinced to stay away from your friends. You've been convinced to stay away from your family. You've been convinced that only the abuser loves you. You've even been convinced that only the abuser is there for you. So you spend days, months, years with the manipulating, disrespectful, unloving con artist of an abuser. This type of abuse is even more dangerous because of the mind games that they are capable of. The abuser is clever, unscrupulous in all his ways. The abuser is skillful at managing your emotions and influencing your behavior. The abuser uses manipulation for his benefit to control you. The manipulator creates an imbalance of power and then exploits their victims to serve their own agenda, which is power and possession. Now, a manipulating abuser covertly influences their victims with direct, indirect, and deceptive and abusive tactics. The manipulation is a form of a psychological manipulation, which is a type of social influence that is aimed to change your behavior and or your perception of them through abusive deception or underhanded tactics. This is a known method that is abusive, it is devious, and it is deceptive. The abuser or the manipulator involves bringing a victim under the domination of the manipulator. This type of abuser that uses manipulation plays on the vulnerability of his victims. He spends time figuring out which tactics are likely to work. He's known as a con man. So, you are under the spell of abuse by the master manipulator. This manipulator is sufficient in being ruthless. He has no problems with causing harm to the victim if at all necessary. See, it can get dangerous. Manipulators control their victims with positive reinfluencement, which will include praise, superficial charm, or they go as far as excessive apologizing. They give money, they give gifts, they force smiles and laughter. Sound normal, doesn't it? Don't believe the hype. Manipulators control their victims with negative reinforcements. This can involve removing their victims from a negative situation. Seems like they're so helpful. Such things as these are rewards. Now, you won't be in trouble if you allow me to do this for you. That's what the manipulator tells you. I got you. The manipulator will control the victim with punishment, which includes nagging, yelling, the silent treatment, intimidation, threats, swearing, emotional blackmail, guilt trips, sulking, crying, and just plain old playing the victim. Here you got the manipulator playing the victim. Remember, they cunning. The manipulator uses traumatic trials, learning tactics. This includes verbal abuse, explosive anger, and any other intimidating behavior that will give the manipulator control and or establish dominance over the victim. Just one incident of these behaviors can or will condition or train the victim to avoid upsetting the manipulator, never confronting or contradicting the manipulator. This is what he set out to do in the beginning. And with all these various tactics, it's working. According to the psychologist George K. Simon, the following techniques are used to manipulate. And I want you to hear me good. And the first one is lying. Then the other one is lying by omission. They leave something out. Denial. They don't own it. Rationalization. They spin the situation. Minimization. More denial and rationalizing. Example. Here's an example. It was only a joke. Diversion. They won't give a straight answer. Evasion. Similar to diversion, but gives irrelevant, rambling, vague responses, just a few weasel words. Covert intimidation. This is the manipulator throwing the victim on the defense with vile threats. Guilt trip. This is a special tactic used to make the victim feel that they don't care enough. And then shaming. Manipulators uses sarcasm, put downs, and increase fear and self-doubt in their victim. This can be done with stares, fierce look, glances, unpleasant tones, anything that will control you. Manipulators will feign innocence and confusion. They will also brandish anger. Oh yeah. Manipulators will exploit the vulnerabilities of their victims. This can be done because the victim has a disease to please. Because the victim has been brainwashed to please. The victim craves the approval and acceptance of others. The victim may have Here you will see that this victim even has an emophobia, which is a fear of expressing anger, frustration, or disapproval. And most of all, a fear of negative emotions. Now, the victim has a lack of assertiveness and has no ability to say no. The victim has low self-reliance. The victim has a blurred sense of who they really are. Remember that manipulation takes the time, the manipulators rather take the time to scope out their vulnerabilities and traits of their victims. This is a way to deal with the manipulator. Some are sneaky, some are emotional manipulators, some are just evil, some you are in a relationship with. But let me assure you that when you are in a manipulative relationship, you are allowing them to control your feelings, your motives and thoughts through deception. This type of relationship is one-sided and very unbalanced. This type of relationship will become nothing but trouble over a period of time. And yes, I do believe that you see signs at the onset. You see that you are now being told what not to wear, what to wear, how to comb your hair, what time you should be home, who you should have lunch with. These are a few of the signs of manipulation in a relationship. There is a difference between influence and manipulation. Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, the development, or behavior of someone or something. Manipulation is the act of control or play upon by artful, unfair, or insidious means, especially to one's own advantage. Again, know that those that manipulate other people are good at spotting people to control. It is not by happenstance. Once you recognize the trait of the manipulation, the next step for you is to discover your own contribution that has allowed your manipulative abuser to treat you this way. See, you got to take some blame. You got to take some ownership that has got this far. If you feel as though you're unworthy, unloved, and that you must take care of the needs of your abuser because you are not useful unless you do those things that please the manipulator, if you feel that you must have the manipulator's approval and acceptance, if you feel as though you don't have a voice and that you cannot express your emotions, if you feel that you can't say no to your manipulator, if you have no sense of your own self-worth, take a look at your personal tendencies that has allowed the abuser, the manipulator, to control you. You must know that you can only change you. You are the person in this relationship that really matters. You've been hiding behind the lipstick of the master manipulator, and you've lost control of your emotions, your mental health, and your physical body. It's time to snap out before it's too late. Today we're going to stop right there due to time, but I want you to know, stay tuned for part 2 of the master manipulation that goes on in abusive relationships. And I want you to understand, recognize the sign. Stay tuned. We'll be back.